So UFC 320 just went down, and from this clip you can clearly see who I was rooting for. Volume warning, by the way.
Come on! Come on! Come on! Come on, please! Yes! Yes! Oh my god!
So Alex Pereira went in and put the pace on Magomed ankalaev, impressing everyone with a fast, quick TKO through elbows in a ground and pound. I'd say I need to do a recap for that fight, but dude, that was the whole fight. Pereira did the exact opposite of the last fight and came to ankalaev with pressure, fast, so ankalaev couldn't come with a game plan. Couldn't wrestle with Poatan. It was so smart. For ages, we've been saying that Pereira can't get this one done. He can't beat Ank when this is what Ank does. However, the best way to beat a wrestler as a striker is to finish them before they even start wrestling. It's what DDP should have done. It's what we all want to see, and Poatan did it. Even though Magomed isn't a wrestler, so don't get mad at me in the comments, but massive respect to Alex Pereira. He's not going back to the tire shop. He did the same thing that he did to Jamal Hill again, and he even spat at Sharma in Ank's face after hugging him. No more Sharma. Ank, you couldn't have been more wrong. Sharma. Now let's talk about Jiri Prochazka versus Khalil Randry. I'm going to be honest, I thought this would be very 50-50, but it really wasn't for the most part. Khalil dominated 2 of the 3 rounds. Roundtree was consistently countering, plus mixing up shots with punches to the head and the body, whilst using low kicks too. He hurt Jiri to the body a few times as well. I mean, the guy wasn't pressing. However, the same thing happened again to him that also happened in the Pereira fight. He had his number on the opponent, but then when the script changed, as he was reeling close to victory, the chaos became too much, and just with a few shots, it was clear round 3 was justifiable for Khalil, who unfortunately couldn't make it through. I mean, look, you gotta feel for the guy, man. He was so close, but it is the fight game. Khalil Roundtree Jr. is a stud, and he's so good, but he just couldn't last the 3. Big thank you to both of them, though, for giving us an entertaining war, one of the best fights of the year, easily. But now, with that being said, what happens now? Well, now we got to kind of look. We got to match the next 2 opponents for our winners, and maybe even our losers too, depending on the situation. I matched both Corey Sanhagen and Merab Dvalishvili, their next fights, in my last video, so be sure to check that out after this one. But let's get into who we're going to match up. Okay, so with Alex, he beat Magomed by TKO, made it look simple and easy. Some people online were saying this should have gone longer. It was a bit early, and I won't lie, I could have maybe seen it for a couple more seconds. But you can tell Herb was telling Ank he needed to get up. I don't know if ankalaev could even hear due to all the noise from the crowd because everyone was going insane, including me if you saw that video. But nonetheless, it happened, and now Pereira is champ again. So I have a few options, and I'll explain them as we go. Number 1, and the one I like the least, is the ankalaev rematch. Now they're 1-1 against one another. Both of their last wins were very dominant. However, Pereira put Ank out in round 1. If that's not cause to close the chapter, I don't know what is. Rarely have I ever seen an immediate rematch after a round 1 KO. Now Volk had something similar, but he fought for a different belt, and he was like 6 defenses in. Ank had 0 compared to Pereira's 3. So it made sense to give Poltan the rematch, whilst it doesn't really for Ank. Yes, he beat Pereira before, and now going into the 3rd fight, there'll be a lot more hype and talk from both sides, but I still don't know. I feel like if they were going to make that fight, they would have said something, and they didn't. I doubt Dana will agree to it. I think Ank probably needs to get another win before going back in, even with the win over Pereira. This one was just too quick and decisive. Now, the next 2 options depend on where Alex wants to go next. Obviously, he's been at the light heavyweight division for a while now. He's beat most of the light heavy roster, at least all the top dogs that remain in the front of the charge. However, pretty much everyone at this point have brought up the idea of him moving up to heavyweight. Now, Alex Pereira isn't a young man anymore. He hasn't been for a while. You would think it looking at his speed and also his activity. I mean, the guy got KO'd by Izzy, and then within the same year became the light heavyweight champ with a win in between. It's crazy. However, look, he's 38 now. Come next July, he'll be 39. This man is near the end of his career, and he doesn't have a lot of many years. And he doesn't have a lot left. Now, I haven't heard him specifically say that himself, but I can't imagine a guy with as many wars as he's had in MMA and kickboxing is going to be able to go much longer. We saw him stare at his toes. I've seen it be confirmed that he's broken a toe or multiple toes. I'm not too sure, but the simple fact is that this isn't the first time this has happened. It happened to him in the second Jiri fight too, and I think that just comes down to age. As you get older, your body is more prone to these injuries. And I can see this becoming more and more of an issue. I mean, he barely even used the leg kicks and the toes broke. Imagine if that fight was 4 minutes and 4 more rounds longer. Geez, even thinking about it stresses me out. Now, with that being said, hey, if I was him, I'd try and use my last remaining fights for a chance to move up to heavyweight and become the first three division champ. Now that would put him at that would easily put him top three MMA fighters of all time with less than 20 fights. I mean, the guy joined the UFC 3 years and 11 months ago, and in less than 4 years, he's become a double champ, two-time light heavyweight champ, and top three light heavyweight of all time. What does he have left to prove? So, if he wants to stay at light heavyweight, look, there's where he's proven his best at. We have two more options. Jiri Prochazka again, or Carlos Ulberg. Guys, I feel like this one's a no-brainer to me. I gotta say Pereira versus Ulberg. I love Jiri. He's one of the most exciting fighters, not just in the division, but in the UFC in general. However, I don't see much rhyme or reason for utilizing one of Pereira's potentially last fights on a trilogy with Jiri after he's already knocked the guy out twice. Jiri has had two great KOs over Hill and Roundtree since his last fight with Alex, but he hasn't shown enough to give us any reason to think it wouldn't go the same. He beat Roundtree, but he took a consistent amount of blows before that, and you just know if Pereira was throwing those shots, Jiri would have been out again. I think it simply just comes down to the puncher's chance, which I think Jiri has, but I simply don't think that's reasoning enough and compelling enough to not give it to Ulberg, who just got a massive KO win, has a lot of hype, also coming off impressive wins, not as impressive as Jiri, but he's a new face for the belt. Ulberg trains with CKB, that's City Kickboxing. They of course have a lot of history with Pereira, as they're also best known for training Izzy. So there's a nice little storyline there that I think would come down to a nice fun fight. Now the third option, Alex Pereira versus Tommy Aspinall for the heavyweight belt. Look, it's no secret that the heavyweight division is easily the shittest division in the sport right now. No doubt about it. And I truly believe that if we want the heavyweight division to move past whatever was with Aspinall and Jones, we should bring in Aspinall and Pereira. The only fight other than that to make is maybe look they could do Aspinall versus Ngannou, but that's impossible. So they will bring that level of hype with an Aspinall versus Pereira. And even Aspinall versus Gan, I'm sorry, that's a terrible fight. Gan's only on a 2-fight win streak, with one coming by way of robbery, and he's already previously lost 2 title fights. We don't need to see Gan fight for the title again, but it's happening. And now, that being said, if Gelton Almeida doesn't win his next fight against Volkov, then yeah, the division is screwed. Because Tom's already beat most of the guys in the division, and he has that Marab effect where when he beats them so definitively that you never really see a point in a rematch again. So I think given where the heavyweight division is at, and given where Pereira's career trajectory is at, I think this will be the perfect moment to make that fight, assuming Aspinall beats Gane, which there is a 99% chance of. Now you're probably thinking, what the hell? What about the light heavyweight division? Well, now let's talk about Jiri, because I don't want to see Jiri fight Pereira again for the title. But if Pereira moves up, I'd be more than happy to see Jiri fight Carlos Ulberg for the vacant title at 205 pounds. And I think the light heavyweight division has slowly become good enough again to the point where it can possibly stand by itself in due time without Poatan. I don't think the division will take a massive hit without Pereira. Don't get me wrong, I think it will take a hit, but not a massive one. However, again, if they decide to keep Pereira at light heavy, then it gets more complicated because if Magomed had won, I say hell yeah, give Jiri another title shot because the guy has beat pretty much every other contender. But it's specifically because Poatan won that I don't think he can be next. So if it's not Carlos Ulberg for some sort of interim or vacant title, I'd say why not wait for Magomed to come back because I'm looking at the rankings and he's pretty much fought all the top 9 contenders except for Magomed and Jan Blachowicz. So I say give us one of those fights. Blachowicz would make sense in terms of the division because Jamal Hill can fight Reyes, but Yuri can't fight Reyes because he's already fought him, and it just ties things together. I don't know. However, I think the most exciting fight is probably Magomed because the two of them have had it back and forth. Both guys very close to the title, but have a hurdle due to their losses to Pereira. So I'd say whilst Pereira fights Olberg, why not give us Jiri versus Magomed, unless they possibly end up wanting to do Khalil versus ankalaev. But nah, I think Jiri makes more sense. Yeah, that's what I'd do. Either Pereira versus Aspinall at heavyweight, and Yuri versus Carlos Olberg at light heavy, or Pereira versus Olberg and Jiri versus Magomed. Unless their schedules don't line up, because Yuri might want to get in there faster than Magomed, because Magomed could have had concussion. In that case, I'd do Yuri versus Blachowicz. Let me know in the comments if you agree, or if you'd rather see some other fights. I'm more than fine with disagreement, but tell me why. And whilst you're down there, subscribing and liking are free. And if you got this far, you probably enjoyed the video enough to do both. No pressure, but I'd appreciate it. Anyways, see ya.